We are back today with another episode of the Grace Auburn podcast, and my name is Lee, and I am joined today by my friend Liam Barham. Liam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Many of you know Liam. Many of you know who he is, may not know his name or last name or where he hails from. And today, I'm excited to continue our series, Why Would You Want to Work, or Why in the World Would You Want to Work for a Church? Really, these episodes serve two purposes. One, they serve as a means of introduction for our brothers and sisters on staff that you may not yet know. It also gives them an opportunity to share their testimony of the Lord's faithfulness, not only in salvation, but in his leading them to this church and then eventually onto this church's staff team. I unashamedly will tell any other church planter, any other executive pastor, that your most effective means of leader development is from within and not hiring from without. Liam, you are no exception to that rule. I'm incredibly excited to continue in this series. I'm incredibly excited for people to get to hear a bit of your story. So with that, let's jump right in. I'd love for you to start really wherever you want to. And again, there's no rules on this version of the podcast, these episodes. It really is up to you on where you want to start in terms of the Lord's leading, his faithfulness in your life. But consider this conversation as both kind of an announcement of your employment here, which is kind of silly to say for you considering how long you've been on this team in a variety of roles. Right. But really as a means of inviting someone to pull up a chair at the table, so to speak, as we think about who you are, how the Lord has led you to date. So with that, why don't you jump in, take it from there, and we'll see how the Lord leads.
Sounds good. So I think maybe the easiest place to start is just my coming to faith story, which happened when I was, I think, 7 or 8. I'm not exactly sure when the timeline was. And when I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to share, or what I wanted to say, what kind of hit me was just the memory that I have of being 7 or 8 and kneeling behind the couch in our living room, just praying. I just remember being in incredible distress, just praying, God, please will you forgive me? Please forgive me. And so I have no idea what 7 or 8-year-old Liam had done that, had overwhelmed me with this sense of conviction. But like when I think about, in Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis basically just breaks it down to like, there is a God and he is tremendously concerned about what we do. And I think that was pretty much as far as it had gone for me. It was just, I believe that there's a God because I've grown up in church and my family is Christians, and I have done something that would make him mad. I have done something that is not okay in his sight. And so anyway, I asked my mom, I think maybe a week later, like, okay, how do I become a Christian? Because I need to become a Christian. And so that was sort of the beginning of my story. And it was, I think maybe as a lot of other stories are, that was kind of the end of it for a while, because it was like, all right, cool. I'm now made right before God. Yes. And so that's sort of, I would say, maybe the first section. And then move into middle school, high school was when I first got challenged and maybe accepted the challenge of, okay, how do you live differently now? And anyway, there was a lot that went into that, but my involvement in the youth group, my getting on a worship team for the first time, there were a lot of things happening there that contributed just to, okay, what does it look like? My life should look different, and it hasn't really looked different as a third grader, fourth grader, fifth grader. Like, I just didn't experience a lot of change outside of just, okay, now I'm a Christian and I'm still living this life where I go to church and I go to Awana and now I go to youth group and okay, what does it look like for me to be a Christian? So then I go to undergrad, Liberty University, Christian University. And I think the first thing that really confronted me there was the evangelism class, where I was just confronted with the fact that this whole evangelism thing is going to be the most miserable thing I've ever done in my entire life if I do not really believe or
Yeah.
live my whole life
Mm.
like this is what I'm about.
Yeah.
And so I think that was maybe the first time where not the first time, but I remember it being a real moment for me where I just realized I think being a Christian is going to be terrible unless I actually live
Yeah.
like it's supposed to change my entire life, unless this is what I'm living for.
Yeah.
So there's again these are spans of years that I'm talking about. I underwent a lot of theological challenge in undergrad.
Yeah, no doubt.
And had a lot of what felt like absolutely world-shaking identity changes theologically and just practically while I was going through those 4 years, and it ended with COVID. And so then I go home for the summer of 2020 after I graduate, or really for the spring of 2020 and graduate, from home, don't really have a graduation. And then I come to Auburn. And so Auburn, I think, is the part of my story where I sort of learn what I believe the church is supposed to look like. And for me, that looked like coming to Grace and learning what does it mean to be involved at a local church? What does it mean for the local church to be the local church? What does the local church do? Why does it come together? Why is it important that you're a part of the local church rather than a part of campus ministry exclusively, which campus ministry is great, but going to a Christian university, I experienced a ton of ministry opportunities. I was a community group leader for 3 years. I went to and really just being a community group leader is just a huge commitment.
Yeah.
You're a leader of a small group. You are a part of a small group of where you are the member, and there's a shepherd that's kind of ministering to you. You also have leadership meetings. You also have another separate meeting that someone even higher than your personal hall shepherd is. You are doing one-on-one meetings with your shepherd, not just group meetings. I mean, it's probably 10 to 15 hours a week of hall ministry activities.
Yeah, life on campus is a campus ministry.
Yes.
It's a parachurch ministry that exists, and it encompasses every area of your life.
Yes. And so my involvement at church in my undergrad was I went to church on Sundays.
Sure.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of pushback on that from freshman year. I had some guys who were really passionate about being involved in the local church rather than just being involved at Liberty.
Yeah.
And we can talk more about this if you want to, but ultimately I'll just say, yeah, Grace was my first, I think, the first time that idea of being involved in the local church really had teeth to it.
Yeah.
And I've been really challenged, but also just, the blessing of being not just challenged, but like encouraged by our college student presence here, where it's like everyone goes home for the summer and our kids ministry like really feels it, because it's people are so and our focus on membership and just the fact that my interactions in undergrad with someone who was over the age of 23 were incredibly minimal. And so the people that I viewed as the wise people who had most of the answers were the 22-year-olds because I was only 19 or because I was only 20 or because they were confident, like they were. And so again, I'm not here to speak poorly of Liberty at all, but
No, I don't hear that.
that is the,
Yeah.
that was sort of what I learned as far as, the experience ranges
Yeah.
is a range of about 4 years.
Yeah.
And so then coming to Grace and getting to be a part of something that is wide ranging, that is a range of about 60 to 80 years instead, and getting to learn from what do little kids pick up when we worship together, when we sing together, and what are they learning, and what is the 70-year-old man in the back of the room who has been in church for 60 years. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's the most mature one in the room, but that's a wealth of experience that really informs his perspective of what's going on. And I think I've just learned a lot about the benefit and the beauty of getting to see that.
All right, so God in his faithfulness saves you at an early age. You work really what I heard you saying in terms of those formative years of following Jesus in your home and then outside of your home was you were looking for a life of congruence, right? Like if what I say I believe doesn't impact and shape the way I actually live, then as Dietrich Bonhoeffer would say, then I don't actually believe the thing that I say I believe.
Yeah.
You experience a version of that, let's say, in terms of kind of being involved with older believers, discipling relationships in high school and college. And to be fair, I think if someone comes out of an unchurched experience or a lightly churched experience, meaning they just go on Sunday mornings with their families in middle school, high school, what have you, getting to Liberty probably feels like you're thrown in the deep end of some very, very weird but warm, and I like it, kind of Christian pool where you're deeply overwhelmed with the presence of people who love Jesus. And for some, that might draw them in. It might push them away. It might do a variety of things. I know that not everyone who goes to a Christian university is Christian. And some of them come out of Christian universities not actually believing the thing that they believed and recognize, I don't believe any of this. For you, that wasn't your experience. You came to Auburn for grad school with a clear love for Jesus, but an also deepening desire. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe let's expound on that transition for you a little bit. In coming to Auburn, were you automatically looking for what you hadn't yet experienced, or did you not know what you didn't know until you got here? How is Grace Auburn a part of that? You mentioned this was really your first experience, is your first experience with truly intergenerational community gathering together, at least in terms of you being deeply involved in it. Is that something you were on the hunt for when you got here? How did you get to Grace Auburn? Who invited you in? What was that experience like?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so let me first say, in case I misrepresented this situation, I grew up in a very devout Christian family in the sense of my mom and dad love Jesus.
Yes.
And they are very committed to being a part of a local church. Now, what I will say is I think just the context that I grew up in church was fairly tumultuous. And so I went to the same church with my family. Our whole family went there till I was maybe 13. I think that was when I joined the worship team, or at least started getting my foot in the door there. And also I was plugged into our youth group that we had. And so when my family left for kind of auxiliary reasons, I got to stay.
Okay.
But at that point, that was my first introduction to, okay, I go to church on Sunday morning, and that's the thing that I sort of want to do or enjoy or whatever. And then I go to church with my family. And that was a time of a lot of exploration and a lot of confusion. We spent a lot of time in the charismatic church. And so there were just a lot of things getting thrown at me there, right?
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to clarify there, because that also gives context then to I come to, I'm at the charismatic church. I come to Liberty, and I spend my first year, I think, looking for a contemporary, I want this, a church that has a certain sort of feel to it. And eventually, I after that first year, I sort of realized, Liberty kind of is providing actually all of that modern stuff. And what I really care more about is a gospel and a church experience that doesn't care as much about the experience and maybe is more truth-based.
Sure.
And that's a heavy statement as well. But the point being that then when I come out of, I spent the last 3 years of my time at Liberty in a Baptist church. And so then I come to Auburn. And so I think over the course of that, my junior year, I became, I finally submitted to all of my friends that were Reformed.
Yes.
And I finally, not just in my head, but in my heart, believed, I guess you're still a Christian if you're a Calvinist, which was something that I think I always was able to say. And sure. I don't think, as soon as it became like, I think maybe there's something to this, I realized my heart really didn't believe that. And so anyway, all of that sort of coalesced when I came to Auburn, and my mom had sent me a link to Grace Auburn that she had found on the list of, I think it was the Gospel Coalition Summit Network or something like that. And so she was like, hey, I've been doing some looking, and it seems like theologically and practically and whatever, this church probably aligns with you, so you should try it out.
Nice.
I actually came to Auburn completely independently with a good friend of mine and a roommate from Liberty, Parker Williams, and completely independently, his best friend's wife's good friend was at Grace already and was like, hey, you should come there. And so me and Parker had decided that our first Sunday here, we were going to try Grace completely independently. And so then we rode together here, and just my only experience up to that point with church was, do I like this or do I not?
Yeah.
And so to whatever end that meant, I came to Grace and I liked it my first day. Yeah. And so that was kind of what brought me here. So to answer the question you actually asked, I was not looking for anything specific as far as a church goes. I just knew I'm coming to Auburn. I need to be a part of a church.
Yes, good.
And I think probably part of me was aware at some point, this is now 5 years ago, but part of me probably was aware that I don't really know what it looks like to be part of a church. I'd actually gone to my senior year, I'd gone to my pastor at the Baptist church, and I'd said, I think I maybe want to be a member. I've been here for 3 years, and I think I maybe want to be a member. He was like, okay, so you dropped the ball. And I was like, 100%. And so that was actually, being more involved in my church was a goal when I came to Auburn. But I didn't know what that was going to look like.
Well, I think it's telling of so many college experiences, whether at a Christian university or at a place like Auburn, where there just happen to be a lot of Christians. Though I will say just and remind everyone that the vast majority of college students in our community are not Christians, regardless of the fact that the ones you know are. There are so many who are not. It's why we put as much emphasis on reaching the campus with the good news of Jesus. It's why we put as much emphasis on loving our college students well while they are here, and to your point, invite them into not only being a part on Sunday morning, but to membership. And what does it mean to be a member in a community? What does it mean to be a member who serves? What does it mean to be a member who asks, how can I bring the giftings and the passions and the energy that the Lord has given me and bring it to the local church in a way that says, I'm here for a season? And some people come to Auburn knowing how long they're going to be here. You came to Auburn as a PhD student in math, which meant you didn't have a clue how long that was going to take, but you said, I'm here, and Lord, I want your glory through me in the local church. How can I serve? How can I be a part? And you knew maybe what you were looking for in terms of healthy, vibrant, thriving church. I don't know if church plant 5 years ago, we were, just into this building was something you were looking for. Now you serve this church in a variety of ways, but you serve on staff as music director here at Grace Auburn, leading us in musical worship on Sundays, helping our teams get ready for Grace Campus, Grace students, helping shape not only the experience of folks in worship, but also those who are leading. That team continues to grow. It continues to change. I speak for so many in church leadership when they say that sometimes worship leading culture in other places can be tumultuous. It can be, to use your word earlier, it can be a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, whether that be charismatic or from a place where we only sing hymns. And so you have been given the task of leading a lot of folks with a lot of preferences, both from a brand new first-time visitor to your most devoted female vocalist or male vocalist or, drum player or any other instrument, anybody on the team, so to speak. I'm not naming names or specific people.
Right.
But because of that, it is a unique ask to serve as the one who is selecting the songs, who is leading the team, leading rehearsal and practicing on your own and song selection and all that goes into it. So before we get into why do you want to work for a church, I didn't prep you for this. I'm going to throw this question at you. I'd love to know in terms of the guy who is really just the tip of the spear, so to speak, of an entirely wonderfully gifted group of individuals that lead us in worship. What's your favorite part of that whole experience? And that could be anything from song selection to rehearsal to I'd love for people, and we're going to get into later this summer, we're going to record early fall. We're going to record kind of a deep dive with Matt when he comes back from sabbatical on the process and get really down into the weeds of how each moment of the worship service is determined. We can get into that a little bit now if you want to in terms of the mechanics of it. I really just want people to hear your heart, so to speak, in terms of what do you love most? I'm not going to ask you what do you love least. But what do you love? Because every job, including vocational callings into the church and vocational ministry, they all have parts we don't like. That's not what I want.
Oh shoot! I was hoping all those would disappear.
No, they don't go away. No, they don't. They don't go away. Whether this is something that is long term for you or a continued yes, my yes is on the table for however it is long it is that you're in Auburn. I'd love for people to know what your favorite part is, and that may have evolved. You've had a variety of roles with worship over time, from volunteer to now leading the team. Yeah. What do you love most?
Yeah, that is a really good question that I don't think I think about very often. And I think probably part of it is because oftentimes the things that when I just realize, oh, I love this, or the times that bring me the most joy are oftentimes when I'm not expecting it.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many times I've gone into a Sunday being like, man, this is going to be amazing. And then it just... whatever that looks like, it just fails to meet expectations. Right. And then how many times I have come in being like, this is going to be a tough one today. And it ends up being really, really sweet. And so there's something about expectations that I think can really has a huge impact on that. But there are a couple of things that I really love. I really love when I am reminded, this is sort of a big job, especially when I've got a limited amount of time and I've got a limited amount of creativity and I've got a limited amount of talent. And like, there are all of those things that are just not infinite and are just not, that there's a limited pool there. And so when I'm reminded that I guess the Lord is working through me in a way that I could not have made happen. And so I love song selection. It can be absolutely so difficult. It can be like so frustrating to just be like, man, this is not coming together. Or, I'm just, I'm just blank slate and I have no idea where to even start as far as, picking songs for this week. But a lot of times what I do spend time looking at the text and trying to pick songs that will, if I don't know what the teaching pastor that week is going to focus on,
right,
I sort of just pray and spend time in the passage and just see, okay, like what is jumping out at me as the predominant theme here, or as something that we would want to, especially given the theme of the series, something that we'd want to lean into. And so, because of that, there's a lot of opportunity for me to pick songs to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
But what's really, really sweet is when then I realized that like it was sort of out of my hands all along. And something happens that I was like, man, I was not even planning for these three themes to be united here in this one song, or for these three songs. It happened the other day where one of our vocalists just said, a family member had passed away recently. And one of our vocalists said, this is a rough one for me today because every single song that we're singing involves, has a verse or a line or a chorus about singing in eternity with all, like Holy Forever that we sang on Sunday, all who've gone before us and all who will believe, right? So there's that eternal hope of glory that we have of singing around the throne in eternity, with Jesus and also with those who are gone now, and those who believed. And that was just a moment of like, well, I'm terribly sorry that I did that to you, because that was so not intentional.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that it was really hard, I think it also really hit that vocalist hard. And so playing on Sunday morning can be really wonderful and it can be really anxiety inducing, but a similar thing can happen there where I just become very aware of I could never have done this.
That's
I
right.
can't make worship happen.
No.
Matter how hard I try, no matter how perfect the music is, no matter how and so when I pull one in-ear monitor out and I just hear our church just singing their guts out because they believe what's in these songs.
Yeah.
And, when I see someone, fall to their knees at a certain line of the song, which is not something that happens really at Grace Auburn.
Sure.
But when I see things that I'm like, I could never have done that.
No, yeah.
That is the moment when I'm like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is such a privilege to get to do this.
Oh, it's such a sweet picture. I love so much not only your heart for and really open-handedness to the Lord to go, God, you are going to have your glory, and you are going to bring about praise and worship from every tribe, every tongue, and one day every knee will bow. And on this day, we have the privilege of doing that in some shadowed way, right?
Yeah.
Not as we one day will, but this day in part, and believe and hope that one day we will see him with our eyes, but on this day we're going to sing with our mouth and believe by faith that he hears the praise of his people and he is honored and glorified. And there's something, I know we'll talk about more of this in a later podcast, but there's so much good that happens when, and I said this in a sermon recently, I know we've said this from the stage on numerous occasions, we say this in conversation, that there's something amazing that happens when I see you singing your guts out to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And there's something amazing when someone sees a small child get it for the first time. There's something amazing with it when we see a woman who's lost a spouse praising her King, trusting him in his sovereignty and his goodness and in his kindness, even in the hurt, even in the pain, whether that's from behind a microphone or 10 rows deep in worship. We, as the people of God, singing the praises of God because he is worthy of it.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, Liam, your yes has been on the table. You've been available, you've been eager, you've been present. You and maybe another conversation at another time, really for the purpose of having a longer form conversation of how the Lord has led you from where you thought you were going to end at the end of a graduate degree to where you might one day end. And we can have that conversation when you graduate, whether that's us sending you out or not. Right. But for the purpose of this conversation, the Lord has brought you onto our team as the music director, a key component of corporate worship in how we gather and sing the praises of our King. So I want to ask you, and kind of wrapping this conversation up, and I'll let you land this plane answering this question. You could do a lot of things, right? You specifically could teach math for the rest of your life. You could do a whole host of other things in and around that use math. I mean, math feeds so many different things. You could lead worship. In this season, in this moment, the Lord has led you onto our team. And so I ask you the question, just in conclusion this morning. Why in the world would you want to work for a church? You've been here long enough to know that that's not always, cupcakes and rainbows, that it comes with a certain amount of pain and angst, both within and also from without. We joke about, your very first staff meeting was a just massive train wreck of emotions in terms of some really hard things that our staff was going through, some hard things being said about certain people on our staff team, and us really leaning into that moment together, loving one another, caring for one another, praying with and for one another. So you've seen a lot. You've been around for a minute. Not only why would you want to work for a church, but why specifically do you want to work for Grace Auburn Church?
Yeah. So when that was the title of this podcast, and that was what I was going to be, that was sort of the question that I knew I was going to be answering. Just the first thought that I had was like, I didn't. Like this was not the plan, and it has never been the plan. And so, I mean, to maybe go back a little bit further than you were planning on me doing for this question.
Yeah.
When I first arrived at Grace, I was involved in worship, in leading worship and playing piano. I sang a little bit for my church through high school. And then in undergrad, I was not really involved in any sort of church worship leading. I got involved at a homeless ministry my sophomore year, and I ended up doing that through senior year. And part of that was a Bible study, and we eventually started having worship. And so it was just me at a piano and whoever else was around with an instrument. It could not have been more last minute and kind of thrown together. But that was my experience leading worship. And so then coming to Grace, it was actually really important to me that I not lead worship, that I not be involved with that, just because I didn't really know what, I just had this sense of like, I don't really know what my involvement at a church without being on the worship team looks like.
That's good.
And I don't, is this all that my faith is right. Just me getting a chance to play the piano? And so that was just important to me to kind of be able to have that break. And so then I ended up meeting the worship leader, one of the kind of two main worship leaders that we had at that time at Grace, Tyler Palmquist.
Yes.
And he took me out to lunch that very first day that I was there. And we ended up meeting for lunch every week for the rest of that year until he left. Mm-hmm. And so really what that impressed upon me was just like, man, that made all the difference in the world. And like the Lord provided such a good friend and, just a great friend for me that year. And so I then started getting involved in worship at his pushing, his nudging. And so, in all of that, even when I got involved, the sort of framework behind it that he was even pushing me on was like, you have a gift that you can use to serve the church. And so, like, yes, there are these reasons that you don't want to be involved in worship. That's fine. But like, kind of figure out where you are with those so that then you can start serving the Lord. And I still go back and forth on that because I'm a very big proponent of just because you have a gifting doesn't mean that that's what has to happen.
Sure.
Because, it's really been impressed on me even when Matt preached about, I think, William Borden 2 or 3 months ago, spending his entire early 20s preparing to go into the mission field and then dying 2 weeks into the mission field. Right. And saying that like, if we believe that that's not a waste because nothing is wasted with the Lord, then like my piano ability is not a necessity for the Lord to do what he wants to do in my life.
That's good.
But it is a way that I can serve the church.
Absolutely. And
so that has been my framework the whole time. And so there have been times in Grace's history where we've had multiple piano players. And so I played, I think once a month, maybe twice a month. And that was pretty much the extent of my involvement. And then there were times when, especially like over the summer, when there would be no piano players. And so I would play pretty much every week. And I actually had to tell the worship leader, like, hey, can I get 1 week off a month? Like that would be good for me to still be in the congregation. Yeah. That's important to me. And so from the beginning, it's always sort of looked like, hey, whatever what I want to be a part of, regardless of what that means for me, is I just want to be, I want to be a part of this church, whatever that looks like. And so is that me being an usher? Is that me being on the worship team? Is that me, like, what does that mean? I just want to serve. And so that's what brought me here. You took me to lunch, and just buried the lead so hard, had an entire lunch together that had nothing really to do. I think you maybe asked me about how grad school was going, but I was sick of that question by that point, a year before that. So, and then at the very end, last 5 minutes, you just slap a piece of paper down on the table and you say, all right, so we'd like you to join the staff. Here's the job description. And ultimately that was kind of the
Yeah.
choice that you gave me, was this is another way that you can serve the church.
Absolutely.
And that is why I'm here, is because for the time being, I have seen this as a way that I can serve the church. And, all of this is devoid of the pride and the false humility and all of the things that just come with me or would come with being human.
Sure.
All of those things are present, but ultimately, like what I truly want to be my guiding principle is just like, what is best? How can I serve the Lord? And on a more granular level, how can I serve Grace Auburn as my home church, as my family? What does my role look like here, serving my family?
On behalf of the Grace Auburn Church family, thank you for listening to the Grace Auburn Church podcast. If you'd like more information about partnering with us and our mission or ways that you can get connected, please go to our website, graceauburn.church.